DJ Lagway's team impact. So I think the thing with DJ Lagway isn't just that he helps the offense score points. I think he lets the defense also get less time on the field, and he's not going to put them in as many of bad spots as we have with Warner. I'll let you get into it.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm going to say is, like, I think that, I think that we saw early in the game, like, I agree with kind of where you were going with that. I think we saw, if I'm trying to be optimistic, I think you saw early in the game, the defense kind of came out of the gate with some energy on Saturday. Had, some nice plays on the first possession or two, but I think it became pretty apparent that the offense was not going to be able to keep up in this game. And I think that's pretty demoralizing. So I agree. I mean, DJ Lagway, like, it speaks for itself. I mean, if Florida's going to have a chance to win these next 2 weeks, it almost certainly needs to have DJ Lagway on the field. Because, I mean, obviously, the complementary football element of it, but I mean, he just straight up elevates the offense. I think elevates it even to an extent beyond where the level it was with Graham Mertz, who I think does some things better than DJ Lagway. Lagway's thrown a couple rough interceptions and has missed some balls. Like, he's had freshman moments that Graham Mertz doesn't have. I mean, say what you will about Graham Mertz, but, a complete boneheaded decision with the football is rarely one of them. So is rarely one of the issues he has.
Yeah.
So, I think looking at this offense, I mean, we've seen what it looks like with Aiden Warner. I mean, maybe Clay Millen's something different, but if you haven't seen him by now, I'd say you're probably not going to see him. So looking ahead to LSU, and we'll kind of get more into LSU in a little bit, but I mean, I think having Lagway on this team, just to close the year, I mean, I think it's the difference between seeing a team completely fold and a team fight down the stretch for their coach who, maybe his fate is not entirely sealed one way or the other yet.
I do think DJ helps the defense a ton. I mean, if you look back at the Texas game, 2 bad interceptions by Aiden Warner. I'm not going to say DJ doesn't doesn't have any interceptions, but you kind of got to hope that your starting QB doesn't have interceptions that bad. I mean, that first interception from Warner, he just threw it straight to the defensive player for Texas. So I think he limits the time the defense is on the field. He's also not going to I guess the team could fumble still, like Jacoby Jackson's fumble where they then went up 14-0. Doesn't go up 14-0. So, okay, so it's still 7-0. Maybe we still end up punting. So maybe they still do end up scoring. But I mean, maybe they don't. Maybe when we get into the red zone, we actually finish the drive, which results in a touchdown. And instead of the game still being 14-0, it's 14-7. And then that other drive where we had the next one, I believe it was, we also drove down the field. Maybe instead of it being 14-0, now it's 14-10. Maybe it's 14-14. I'm not going to go out crazy and say that we win this game. I'm just going to say with him on the field, you probably take away some of those lackadaisical plays from Warner. And you probably add some big plays for Lagway, which going into this LSU game, we've seen Lagway isn't necessarily the most mobile quarterback like a Jalen Milroe is or like a Lamar Jackson's or anyone like that, Riley Leonard at Notre Dame. But he's a willing runner and he's a big physical runner. So I think you add on to this team. You look at the run game with Jackson and Ball, and hopefully Montrell Johnson comes back. I feel like going into the LSU game, this is a run game that could go for, again, 200, 250 yards on LSU. That hasn't necessarily been the best run defense in the country. So you add him, you open up the run game more. Elijah Badger, I don't know when he got hurt, so maybe it was in practice. Maybe it was just a minor injury. He got against Georgia and finished the game. What was the chance that they kind of just sat him? I talked about earlier how we kind of just punted the game and just accepted that it was going to likely be a loss. I wonder if Badger kind of just sat out for that reason. Mm-hmm. So you add a player like Badger to this offense, who's probably the best receiver on the team right now. So I think you add him, and that adds a lot to the team.
Yeah, I do wonder. I mean, maybe they did just punt on that game specifically. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a little skeptical about how likely it is Lagway actually plays on Saturday.
Oh,
I do wonder if there was an element of just gamesmanship to
hmm
that, the way he was handled all week. And I kind of can't help but wonder if maybe he wasn't quite as, the fact that he came back out in street clothes, like it's like maybe he wasn't quite as close to playing as they kind of tried to frame it to be.
Well, one thing I will say, the early betting lines came out for this game. I've seen two different ones. One that had it LSU -5.5, and one that had LSU
Yeah,
-7. I feel like those betting lines do suggest that they think Lagway will play. Because if Warner were in
100%.
there, I think Florida would be 10 plus 20, maybe. Probably not 20, but 10 plus underdogs to LSU, even though it's home. I think Lagway does end up playing, and I think he's really going to elevate the run game as well as the pass game. And I go back to like Badger. Is he going to play? Is he going to play as well? I mean, Damian George. Does Lagway playing push him to play? And you talked about early in the game, the defense came out with a lot of hype into the game. But then as the game went on, they kind of just, I would say they gave up near the end of the game.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and I think it's demoralizing when the offense just can't do anything. So
It
I
absolutely
think
is.
you have to hope that if Lagway's playing next week, you get enough go, even if he's limited, that you get enough going that LSU, you know, that the defense just doesn't just completely keel over and let LSU move the ball down the field. It will.
Last thing I'll get on to Lagway's impact on that Georgia game. We have a fan saying that if Lagway finishes that Georgia game, Florida wins that game. I'm not going to say it's a guarantee. In
Mhm.
my opinion, we end up winning that game. But I mean, it's hard to say we don't when you look at how the rest of the game went with Warner not doing really anything. I mean, but that's also saying that the defense continues to play lights out. Because you also look at the defense playing lights out for most of that Georgia game. They also were playing trying to win for Lagway. So I wonder if him being back causes the defense to relax a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could. And I mean, also, I really don't think LSU, while they're good on offense, I don't think they're just loaded with the skill and speed in the way that Texas is.
Absolutely. But I mean, just overall, I think we can both agree this team is substantially better with Lagway on the field. How much
100%.
better do you think this team is with Lagway than with Mertz, if at all?
I think right now, like if you would ask me, earlier in the season, like I think when Lagway first was coming into games, it was probably a little bit better with Mertz. But
Mm-hmm.
I think all it took him was a couple games to really show. And I think there needs to be an element of Billy's play calling that kind of is more, you know, flows better with the way he plays, because I think you could have a really prolific passing offense with DJ Lagway at quarterback, and I don't think Billy's offense is really built to do that right now. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where, I think the potential with DJ Lagway is sky high compared to Mertz. Whether in this actual Billy offense, I don't quite know how much it raises the ceiling.
I have to agree. I think the ceiling is definitely way higher with Lagway. If you looked at Louisiana, he had Levi Lewis, who is also a more mobile QB as well. So it's not just the arm talent you're looking at compared to Lagway with Mertz. So I feel like you also look back with Anthony Richardson. The offense does cater to a more mobile quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So even if he does say commit more turnovers, I do think in the red zone also the team is going to be much better with Lagway.